Hello students, today we will be discussing important questions from Deep Water by William Douglas. First question, why did the narrator find the YMCA pool safe? Douglas preferred to go to the YMCA pool because it was safe, as it was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow and 9 feet deep at the other end, and the drop was gradual. So he found the YMCA pool safe because at the shallow end it was only 2 or 3 feet deep, and at the other end it was just 9 feet deep, and though it was 9 feet deep, the drop was gradual. So he found the YMCA pool safe and he decided to go there to learn swimming. Okay. This is just a 2 marks question, 40 words. Okay. Number 2, how did Douglas' experience at the beach in California affect him? At the age of 3 or 4, Douglas accompanied his father to a beach in California. What happened there? The waves hit him, threw him and swept him. And he was only just 3 or 4 years, right? So this was quite overwhelming for the child, more than what he could take, right? And it terrified him, it instilled a fear in him. Thus a fear of water got buried deep inside Douglas. So at the age of 3 or 4, Douglas accompanied his father to a beach in California. There the waves hit him, threw him and swept him. This was overwhelming for the child and terrified him. Thus, a fear of water got buried deep inside Douglas. Number 3. What lesson did Douglas learn when he got rid of his fear of water? When Douglas got rid of his fear of water, he realized that it was fear that created panic. It is fear that creates panic. And it is not any situation that terrorizes us, but it is the fear of that situation which scares us, right? So when Douglas came out of fear, he was relaxed and that terror had gone. So what he is saying is that fear creates panic. Fear of a situation creates panic. It is not that situation that terrorizes us, but if we are fearing that situation, then everything goes wrong, right? Question 4. Which 2 incidents in the life of William Douglas before he was 10 years old created an aversion? What is aversion? Aversion. Aversion means dislike. So, which are the 2 incidents that created an aversion in his mind to water before he was 10 years? The 2 incidents were, one we already discussed, right? The first incident was at the beach in California when he was 3 or 4 years old and when he was accompanied by his father. The second incident was at the YMCA pool at Yakima, where he had enrolled there to study swimming, but then he was bullied by another swimmer there and he was thrown into the river. And yeah, these 2 are the 2 incidents in the life of William Douglas which created an aversion in his mind to water, dislike. 5th question, what did Douglas feel and do when he was pushed into the swimming pool? So he had planned a lot of things to do. I mean, not like that. When he fell into the river, he had planned to come back. But was that a success? No, it wasn't, right? So you have to write all those, right? Douglas planned to reach the bottom of the pool and kick it hard. Like he has seen professionals do that. They just dive into the water and then they kick and then they come up, right? So same way he thought of doing, but despite repeating this thrice, he was unsuccessful. He didn't know how to swim, right? So it's not something possible for him at that time. So Douglas planned to reach the bottom of the pool and kick it hard so that he could reach the surface of the water. Despite repeating this thrice, he was unsuccessful. He tried to scream for help, breathe, but gulped water instead. Now, why I have highlighted these are, it describes the situation he was in when he was in the water. He was fear-stricken, terrorized, paralyzed, and rigid with fear. He searched for something that could help him get out of the mass of yellow water that surrounded him. So yes, so what did Douglas feel and do? This is what. So he planned to reach the bottom of the pool and kick it hard so that he could reach the surface of the water. But despite repeating this thrice, he was unsuccessful, right? He tried to scream for help, breathe, but gulped water instead. He was fear-stricken, terrorized, paralyzed, and rigid with fear. He searched for something that could help him get out of the mass of yellow water that surrounded him. Question 6. How did the swimming instructor build a swimmer out of Douglas? And this is a 4 marks question, okay? That you have to answer about 60 to 100 words. William Douglas developed a fear of water as a child. As a child means first is when he was 3 to 4 years old. From then, this fear remained with him despite his desire to swim in water. Thus, it remained an unfulfilled desire. What does it refer here? It means swimming. See, this fear remained with him despite his desire to swim in water. He wanted to learn swimming. He wanted to swim in water. But because of the fear, this remained unfulfilled. So the desire here is to swim. Finally, he decided to overcome his fear. He hired a dedicated instructor to teach him how to swim. He would spend an hour each day, 5 days a week. So 5 hours he would spend a week. The instructor tied a belt around William's waist. A rope was attached to the belt, which ran up to a pulley which hung on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope and went back and forth across the pool. They practiced this regularly for many weeks. Whenever the instructor would relax his hold on the rope, a bit of the terror would return and his legs would freeze. After 3 months, the tension began to reduce. Then he taught Douglas to put his face in the water and exhale, to raise his nose and inhale. Then he taught him to kick with his legs. Thus, gradually the instructor built a swimmer. This is how he built a swimmer out of William Douglas. So, so this is a 4 mark questions. You have to write this much. Just write what happened. Just understand it and write. Okay. This was the 6th question. Now the 7th question. Why was Douglas keen to overcome his fear of water? Douglas was determined to overcome his fear of water because this phobia had ruined his fishing trips. It had ruined his fishing trips moreover. He had also never been able to enjoy water sports like canoeing, boating and swimming. He was determined to get an instructor and learn swimming to get over his fear of water. So he wanted to get over his fear of water because it had ruined his fishing trips, and moreover he couldn't do any of the water sports, like he couldn't enjoy any of the water sports like boating, swimming and canoeing. So he got an instructor and learned swimming. How did Douglas make sure that he conquered the old terror? Here the terror is fear of water. Douglas went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire to test whether he still had any fear of water. After his vigorous swimming practice, he was still not very sure if his terror for water had left him. So, he wanted to try out his swimming skills at Lake Wentworth. So, even after taking training from an instructor, even after his vigorous swimming practice, he was still not sure if that terror had gone. Right, after all, he had practiced with a rope and he had an instructor, so it was less of a fear because he had someone to help him. But now, after this vigorous swimming, he was not sure if he could do it alone. If he had that terror in him, he was unsure about it. So he wanted to make sure that it's fully solved, the terror, right? So he wanted to try out his swimming skills at Lake Wentworth. What he did, he dived into the lake, and only after swimming across the shore and back did he feel certain his terror of water had fled. It fled, the fear. Okay, so this is how. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire to test whether he still had any fear of water. He learned to swim, but he wanted to know if he was confident. And so when he dived into the lake, and after swimming across the shore and back, he felt certain that his terror had completely gone. 9th question. How did Douglas remove his residual doubts about his fear of water? This is to remove his residual doubts about his fear of water. Douglas went to the Titan to Douglas went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Mead Glacier. You must learn the spelling, okay? To remove his residual doubts about his fear of water, Douglas went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows. From there, up the Conrad Creek to Mead Glacier. He went to the Mead Glacier. He camped in the high meadow by the side of the warm lake. And there he dove into the warm lake, swam across to the other shore and back, just as Doug Corpin used to do. Doug Corpin is a famous swimmer, okay? He is a famous swimmer. He had conquered his fear of water. So his doubts also got cleared. He was confident. He went back and he went to the other shore and he came back. So he had conquered his fear of water. Question 10. This is also a 4 marks question. 100 to 120 words. There was terror in my heart at the overpowering force of the waves. Sorry, just a minute. When did Douglas start fearing water? Which experience had further strengthened its hold on his mind and personality? As a child of 3 or 4 years, Douglas had been knocked down by the waves at California Beach. The waves swept over him and he was buried under the water. The overpowering force of water terrorized him and he developed an aversion for water. This aversion to water resurfaced once again when Douglas was 11 years at the YMCA. Okay, at the YMCA pool this happened, right? So when Douglas was 11 years old, and further strengthened its hold on his mind and personality. An 18 years old boy tossed little Douglas into the deep end of the pool. This downward journey into water for the second time was a nightmarish experience. Nightmarish means it was a dreadful experience. His legs were almost paralyzed, his lungs ached, his head throbbed, and he felt suffocated. Keeping his wits intact, he pushed himself up to the surface of the swimming pool, but all his efforts proved futile. All his efforts were worthless, were of no use. Finally, when he came to his senses, he was lying on his stomach beside the pool. Now the haunting fear of water gripped his heart, and he continued to be mortally scared of water for a very long time. So this was, there was terror in my heart. So this is how you must answer. When did Douglas start fearing water? You will tell the incident, you will briefly explain both the incidents. One when he was 3 to 4 years old, and the when he was 11 years old. And second question, which experience has further strengthened its hold? It's referred to the fear. Which experience had strengthened that fear on his mind and personality? It was the experience at the YMCA pool when he was 11 years old. Now, the second question you will elaborate. Okay, this is how you have to write it. Now, 11th question. Desire, determination and diligence lead to success. Explain the value of these qualities in the light of Douglas' experience in deep water. Determination and perseverance is a combination of attributes and abilities that drive people to set goals for themselves and then to take the initiative to achieve these goals. Douglas was able to overcome his fear of water by the values of positive attitude and courage. Initially, he was afraid of water, but his grit and determination made him get an instructor and overcome his fear. So initially he was afraid of water, but because of that perseverance, determination, he got himself an instructor to overcome his fear. Determination today leads to our success tomorrow. It is that innate quality in our soul which comes to surface when an incident irks it. Irks it means when an incident provokes it. It is a reflection of our values taught to us by society and circumstances and enables us to overcome all obstacles. Now from here, this is the next para, okay? Leave a line and write from here. There is always admiration for heroes like William Douglas who faced challenges courageously and finally emerged successful. For years, the fear of water haunted him. It deprived him of the joy of canoeing, swimming, fishing and boating. However, it was deliberate, planned and correct. I thought there was a mistake here, but it's correct. However, it was deliberate, planned and continuous efforts that enabled Douglas to get over his fear. Here you have to add a letter, okay? Add a word. However, it was his deliberate, planned and continuous efforts that enabled Douglas to get over his fear. He was absolutely determined to get rid of his fear, and it was due to his perseverance and resoluteness that he emerged victorious. This is also a 100 to 120 words, 6 marks question. So yeah, that's all for today. So with this we come to the end of the session. I've discussed 11 important questions which are previous year questions from Deep Water by William Douglas. Thank you.